Why do Japanese characters have big eyes? If you've ever watched Japanese anime like Naruto or Pokemon, you probably noticed this immediately. The eyes stand out. They are large, expressive, and full of light when the character shows emotion. The question comes almost automatically. Do they want to look Western? Do these characters feel embarrassed about looking Japanese and, at least in imagination, try to become Western? This is a very common suspicion. To understand why Japanese characters have big eyes, we need to go back to ancient Greece. It may sound strange now, but stay until the end of the video, because this comparison will explain exactly why these eyes work the way they do. When we compare Disney characters with anime characters, the similarity really appears. Big eyes, clearly defined pupils, emotion concentrated in the gaze. And yes, Japanese artists did watch Disney. Those films circulated in Japan. They were seen, studied, analyzed. There was influence. Denying that would be naive. But here, we need to make a fundamental distinction. Influence is not the same as intention. To understand how this visual trait became central in Japanese animation, it is impossible not to talk about Astro Boy. Created by Osamu Tezuka in the early 1950s, Astro Boy emerges in a Japan still dealing with the aftermath of World War II and the American occupation. Tezuka knew Disney's animation very well. He studied its films, its framing, and the way emotion was communicated through the face. But what Tezuka did was not simple imitation. He adapted those techniques to a new context. In Astro Boy, big eyes stop being just an expressive detail and become a consistent narrative tool. The character needs to communicate complex emotions, empathy, suffering, doubt, compassion, in long, serialized stories published week after week. Big eyes solve this problem. They allow the reader to immediately understand the character's emotional state without relying on long explanations or dense text. After Astro Boy, this model spreads. Not because it looks Western, but because it works within the logic of manga storytelling. At that moment, big eyes stop being just a style and become a language. This type of eye already existed in Japan before anime became a global product, before streaming, before mass export, before any clear strategy of selling abroad. This shows that the explanation, "it's meant to look Western," is not completely wrong, but it doesn't explain everything. Another common answer is the market. Big eyes sell. They make it easier to identify with characters. They help cross cultural borders. All of this is true. But again, this explanation tells us how the style circulated, not why it works. And more importantly, it does not explain why, inside Japan, this kind of character never felt strange. To a Japanese audience, these characters do not look Western. They look normal. There is no sense of imitation, no discomfort. There is recognition. This suggests that the problem is not the drawing itself, but the way it is interpreted outside Japan. Anthropology has a name for this: ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism is when we use our own way of seeing the world as the standard, and judge everything that deviates from it as exaggerated, strange, or wrong. In the West, we learned to read faces as portraits. That is, we expect the face to faithfully represent a real body, a specific anatomy, a visible identity. But this was never the dominant logic in Japan. In Japan, a face does not need to copy a real face. It needs to communicate a state. That is why abstraction is so highly valued. In haiku, a few syllables communicate more than long speeches. In sumii, a few strokes concentrate the intention of a scene. In no theater, an almost motionless mask changes emotion with a slight tilt of the head. This is not a lack of form. It is communicative efficiency. The manga face works in exactly the same way. It is not a portrait. It is a narrative tool. At the beginning of the video, I said that to understand the big eyes of Japanese characters, we would need to go back to ancient Greece. Now that finally makes sense. In Greek theater, actors used masks not to copy a real human face, but to make emotion visible to the entire audience. No microphones, no cameras, no close-ups. The solution was to exaggerate facial features, larger eyes, open mouths, intense expressions. The goal was not realism, it was communication. Japanese manga and anime use exactly the same principle. The face does not function as an anatomical portrait. It functions as a visual language. The eyes grow because they are the main channel of emotion in the human face. They need to communicate quickly what the character is feeling: fear, doubt, empathy, silence. When we look at this expecting a realistic face, we feel discomfort. But that discomfort does not come from the drawing. It comes from our way of looking. Just like the masks of Greek theater, anime faces exaggerate not out of imitation, but out of narrative necessity. Ancient Greece and Japan are separated by centuries and continents, but they solved the same problem in the same way, by exaggerating the face to make emotion legible.